London 1892, the season every debutante dreamed of, and one girl feared most. If you find beauty in stories of lost love and impossible devotion, subscribe, for tonight, we speak of a duke who loved in silence, and a woman who carried his heart without ever knowing. The ballroom of Whitmore House glittered like 1,000 captured stars, its chandeliers dripping light onto marble floors polished to mirror perfection. Silk gowns swept past like painted waves, jeweled fans fluttered, and the air trembled with laughter, bright, brittle, and cruel. At the edge of it all stood Lady Evelyn Ashford, once promised to the heir of this house, now merely a guest, a courtesy extended to pity rather than affection. The orchestra struck a waltz, but no gentleman approached her. Not one dared. Whispers rippled through the perfumed air. "Poor thing," murmured one lady behind her fan. "A fiancé without a wedding, a rose left unpicked." Another replied, "And yet she returns here. Shameless." Evelyn's fingers tightened around her fan until the ivory creaked. The pity in their voices cut deeper than insult. Her gown, though exquisite in its simplicity, dove-gray satin trimmed in pale lace, seemed to her like mourning attire, a quiet confession of what she had lost. From the grand staircase, Lord Adrian Whitmore watched her with the unblinking stillness of a man carved from restraint. The new duke, younger brother to the late Charles Whitmore, Evelyn's lost betrothed, had inherited not only a title but a curse, to live within walls haunted by her presence. He had loved her once, long before duty forbade it. And now, as his mother, the Dowager Duchess, greeted guests with rehearsed smiles, Adrian's heart performed its own silent rebellion. Evelyn turned slightly, unaware of his gaze, her profile caught in the chandelier's light, delicate, resolute, and infinitely sad. Adrian felt something inside him fracture. For 3 years he had mastered silence, but tonight her loneliness seemed a wound he could no longer ignore. The dowager's voice sliced through the hum of conversation. "Lord Pembroke, do escort Miss Ashford to supper. She looks quite unattended." It was a command disguised as charity. The chosen escort, a vain young baronet known for gossip, bowed too deeply and offered Evelyn his arm. Her cheeks flamed, not from gratitude but humiliation. Still she accepted. The rules of society left her no escape. As she crossed the floor, Adrian saw the baronet lean too close, whispering something that made her eyes darken. A low laughter followed from nearby guests, laughter aimed not at humor but cruelty. Adrian's jaw tensed. Every muscle begged him to intervene, but the eyes of London were upon them. He could not risk scandal, not yet. He watched her endure, chin lifted with quiet defiance. She had always borne pain beautifully. At supper, conversation swirled like smoke. Someone mentioned her late fiancé with feigned sorrow. Another remarked how, strangely devoted, the Duke remained to his brother's memory. Evelyn set down her fork, her appetite gone. She felt Adrian's gaze from across the table, steady, unreadable, but burning with something that made her heart misstep. It frightened her more than gossip ever could. When the orchestra resumed, she slipped from the table, claiming a faintness of breath. The ballroom's noise faded behind her as she entered the corridor leading to the conservatory. The air grew cooler, fragrant with roses and damp earth. Moonlight poured through glass panes, painting her in silver. Alone at last, Evelyn pressed a hand to her throat, willing her composure to return. A footstep echoed. She turned. Adrian stood a few paces away, tall against the glow of the glass dome. "Forgive me," he said softly. "I feared you might need air." His voice, deep and measured, carried the gentleness of someone accustomed to speaking truths too late. Evelyn tried to smile. "The air is kinder company than most inside." He hesitated, as though the right words were weapons he dared not draw. "They are fools," he said finally. "All of them." "Then let them be," she replied, gathering her shawl. "Fools are rarely worth defending against. You should not have to defend yourself at all." The intensity in his tone startled her. "My lord, it is not your duty." "Duty," he interrupted, a faint bitterness beneath his calm, "has already taken enough from us both." The statement hung between them, heavy as thunder. Evelyn's breath caught. She looked away, pretending to study a rosebud trembling against the glass. "Your Grace," she said quietly, "it was not your fault. Nor mine. The past is a ghost we must let rest." "Some ghosts," he murmured, stepping closer, "refuse to rest." The moonlight outlined him, the sharp line of his jaw, the faint hollows beneath his eyes, the weariness of a man who had carried too much silence. Evelyn's pulse quickened. "You should return to your guests," she said, though her voice lacked conviction. He did not move. And leave you to their cruelty? Never. Her lips parted, but no sound came. He took a breath, visibly mastering himself. Forgive me. I speak out of turn. No, she whispered, you speak from kindness. And I have known too little of it lately. The admission felt like a betrayal of pride, but it drew a flicker of warmth to his expression, the first she had seen in years. For a heartbeat, neither spoke. The air seemed to pulse with all that had gone unsaid since her fiancé's death. A burst of laughter echoed from the ballroom, breaking the spell. She stepped back. We will both be missed, she said, voice trembling slightly. Adrian inclined his head, the perfect image of composure restored. Then allow me to escort you. They walked side by side through the corridor. Their hands brushed once, briefly, an accident that neither acknowledged yet both felt like a confession. At the entrance to the ballroom, Evelyn paused. Thank you, Your Grace, she said, turning toward him, for remembering that I am still someone. His reply was quiet, almost reverent. You are someone I could never forget. Before she could answer, a new ripple of whispers spread through the crowd beyond the doors. A messenger had just entered, pale, breathless, holding a sealed letter. The dowager's voice rose sharply. Adrian, you are summoned at once. The board requests your presence regarding your late brother's estate. There are discrepancies. The word hung like a noose. Discrepancies meant scandal. Scandal meant ruin. Every gaze in the ballroom turned toward the Duke. Evelyn's stomach tightened with dread. Adrian's eyes found hers across the threshold, a silent promise, a warning, and something deeper she could not yet name. He inclined his head slightly before turning away, the letter trembling in his gloved hand. The orchestra faltered. The guests murmured. And as Evelyn stood frozen beneath the chandelier's glare, she felt the air shift, the fragile order of their world cracking like glass under pressure. For the first time that night she wished the whispers would stop. But they would not. Not tonight. Not ever. The scandal broke before dawn. Servants whispered at first, that the Duke's household accounts were under inquiry, that his late brother's estate held missing sums, that someone, somewhere, had profited from grief. By breakfast, the gossip had crossed every marble threshold in London. The Duke of Whitmore, they said, was under suspicion. And by midday, one name lingered beside his in the murmured aftermath. Lady Evelyn Ashford. No one knew who began the rumor, only that it spread like fire through silk. The charitable donations sent to her orphanage, blankets, food, even the silver watch bearing the Whitmore crest, were now twisted into accusations of deceit. A lover's gifts disguised as charity, sneered one column in the Morning Gazette. The Duke's sentiment outpaces propriety. Evelyn read those words in the corner of a bookshop, her gloved hand trembling so slightly the paper fluttered. The world around her blurred, the scent of ink, the dust of pages, the faint murmur of customers. Shame burned through her like fever. She had done nothing wrong, yet her name was dragged through mud for the simple sin of being pitted by a powerful man. Outside, the winter rain began to fall, thin and steady. She walked home through the narrow lanes of Bloomsbury, skirts darkening with every step. The orphanage loomed ahead, a modest brick building, its windows glowing faintly through the drizzle. Inside, laughter greeted her. Children ran to her skirts, clutching at her hands. Their joy was a fragile balm against the storm of society's scorn. She tried to smile as they showed her their new books, gifts that now seemed tainted by rumor. They say they came from an angel, one little girl whispered. Evelyn's heart clenched. If only the world were so kind. In another part of London, Adrian faced the board of trustees, men older, colder, and sharper than he remembered. They spoke in legal tones, veiled reprimands wrapped in courtesy. Your brother's accounts show irregularities, said Lord Gainsborough. And these contributions to Miss Ashford's establishment, were they authorized from the Whitmore Trust? Adrian's voice was calm, though the question struck deep. Every shilling came from my personal income. The elder man raised a brow. Then the appearance, Your Grace, is most unfortunate. Appearances, Adrian replied evenly, are the favorite currency of the bored and idle. But he knew the damage was done. The world cared little for truth when rumor was more entertaining. By the time he left the meeting, his carriage driver avoided his eyes. That evening, he dismissed his servants early and sat alone before the fire. The rain rattled against the tall windows, echoing his thoughts. On the mantel lay the silver pocket watch, the one Evelyn had returned through a messenger weeks ago. He turned it in his hand, thumb brushing the faint engraving of her initials hidden inside, an indulgence no one knew existed. He could endure scandal, even disgrace. But to see her name stained by association with him, that was unbearable. At the orphanage, Evelyn knelt before the hearth, drying the children's damp shoes. Sister Margaret, the kindly matron, watched her with quiet concern. "You should not read those papers," she said gently. "The world delights in cruelty." "I had thought," Evelyn murmured, "that widowhood might grant me invisibility. I see now it only paints a clearer target." Before the sister could reply, a knock sounded at the door, firm, deliberate. Evelyn rose, heart quickening. When the door opened, Adrian stood framed by rain and lantern light, his cloak dripping onto the step. Every instinct told her to send him away. His presence would only feed the gossip. Yet something in his expression, weary, determined, stilled her protest. She stepped aside. Inside, the warmth of the room wrapped around them like a fragile truce. The children had gone to bed. The corridors were hushed. Adrian removed his gloves slowly as though buying time. "They've turned kindness into scandal," he said at last. Evelyn folded her hands. "Kindness is easily misunderstood when offered by a duke." His mouth tightened. "You would have me ignore the needs of children to protect a reputation I never sought?" "I would have you protect yourself," she replied softly. "And your family name." He laughed once, a quiet, bitter sound. "The Whitmore name has survived wars, deaths, and death itself. It will survive compassion." Evelyn looked away. "You speak as though compassion were yours to spend freely. But I am the one who pays for it." The words cut more deeply than she intended. He moved closer, the space between them charged with unspoken pain. "If my actions have brought you harm," he said, "I will make amends." "There is nothing to amend," she whispered. "Only distance to keep." He studied her face, the calm facade, the eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "You would rather I let them destroy you than stand beside you?" "I would rather be destroyed quietly than ruin you loudly." For a moment neither spoke. The fire crackled, throwing amber light across her features. Adrian felt the ache of every year he had loved her from shadows, every restraint, every silence. "Evelyn," he said, her name a confession. "When my brother died, I swore to protect what he cherished. I thought that meant preserving your peace. But I see now it means defending your honor, even against the world itself." Her composure broke. A single tear escaped down her cheek. She turned from him. "Do not say things that cannot be unsaid. I have already lived too long with words unspoken. Please," she said, voice trembling, "do not make it harder." He reached into his coat and placed a folded paper on the table, a document stamped with the Whitmore seal. "This is the deed to the orphanage," he said. "It is yours now. Entirely. No trace of my name upon it." Her breath caught. "You would give it away?" "I would give the world if it would free you from their scorn." She stared at the parchment, then at him. "They will say this is guilt." "Let them," he said quietly. "I know what it is." The rain eased outside, the steady drip of water from the eaves marking the seconds between them. Finally she spoke. "I cannot accept." "You must." "I cannot." His hand closed over hers before he realized he'd reached for her. The contact was light, a tremor, a bridge across 3 years of distance. Her skin was cool beneath his glove. She did not pull away, but her voice was a whisper. "Do you know what they will say if they see you here?" He met her eyes, steady, unflinching. "I no longer care what they say." The door creaked. Sister Margaret reappeared, candle in hand, her expression unreadable. "Forgive me, Your Grace," she said softly. "A carriage waits outside. You are seen." Adrian's fingers released hers. He straightened, the mask of composure returning with painful precision. "Then I shall leave by the front," he said. When the door closed behind him, the silence felt heavier than before. Evelyn stood by the fire, staring at the deed he had left behind. The paper trembled in her hands, the wax seal catching the light. Outside, the wheels of his carriage splashed through puddles, fading into distance. She pressed the document to her chest, torn between gratitude and dread. For in that single act of sacrifice she saw the truth she had long refused to name, that the Duke of Whitmore's heart was already hers, and that love, once whispered, could never again be silenced. And somewhere in the dark, unseen by either of them, a figure watched from a passing carriage, the Dowager Duchess herself, her eyes cold as rain, her lips tightening around a single damning word, enough. The letter arrived with the dawn and a wax seal as red as blood. Its delivery was silent, but the message it carried screamed through every corner of Evelyn's fragile world. The orphanage's patronage revoked. Her teaching license, under review. and beneath the official signatures lay a single handwritten line, elegant and venomous, for the preservation of moral decency. The Dowager Duchess had struck. Evelyn read the words again and again until the ink blurred. Around her, the children's laughter floated faintly from another room, a sound so innocent it hurt to hear. She folded the letter with trembling fingers and placed it into the drawer of her desk, as if tucking away a wound could stop it from bleeding. The scandal she had feared had found her at last, and this time there was no shield left. Adrian's protection had only sharpened society's claws. By afternoon, carriages began to appear along the lane, their curtains half drawn, faces peering out. Whispers carried faster than rain on cobblestones. The lady who stole a duke's affection. The charity bought with sin. Evelyn met the stairs with quiet composure, but inside, her resolve frayed thread by thread. In his townhouse across London, Adrian received his own summons, not of ink but of command. His mother awaited him. The Dowager Duchess sat beside the hearth, a portrait of iron grace. "You have made yourself a spectacle," she said without turning. "And in doing so, you have endangered everything your brother built." "I have done only what conscience demanded," Adrian replied. "Conscience," she repeated as though tasting the word and finding it bitter. "A luxury for poets, not dukes. She has done nothing to deserve this cruelty." "She has done everything," the Dowager countered, her eyes cold. "She continues to exist where she does not belong. And you, my son, continue to behave as though love were a virtue we could afford." Adrian's jaw tightened. "I will not condemn her for the comfort of a name." "Then you will condemn yourself," she said. "The house of Whitmore cannot survive scandal upon scandal. You will stay away from her, or I will see her cast so far from society that even your pity cannot find her." He left without another word, but the sound of her final sentence followed him like a curse. That evening the city drowned in fog. Lanterns burned low, their halos trembling in the mist. Adrian's carriage moved like a ghost through the deserted streets until it stopped before the orphanage gates. He had not meant to come, but the pull toward her was stronger than shame, stronger even than blood. He entered without knocking. Evelyn stood by the hearth, her shawl drawn tightly around her shoulders, the glow of the fire painting her face in gold and shadow. She turned as he stepped inside, her expression both startled and weary. "You should not be here," she said. "I had to see you. Your mother made certain that I would not be seen by anyone respectable again. You risk more by standing in this room." "I risk only what is mine to lose," he said. "Then you risk everything." The silence between them was heavy, filled with the unsaid. He moved closer, the floorboards creaking softly beneath his boots. "They have revoked your patronage?" Her laugh was small, almost a sigh. "They've revoked my existence, it seems. Without funding, the orphanage cannot last the month." He reached for his pocket, but she stopped him with a look. "Do not. You cannot solve everything with gold." "Then tell me how to help you." "By letting me go." The word struck harder than any accusation. He stared at her, seeing not just the woman before him but every year he had lost in silence. "You ask the one thing I cannot do." "Then we are both doomed," she whispered. The firelight flickered between them, turning the air to amber. Outside, rain began to fall again, soft and relentless. Evelyn moved to the window, watching droplets trace lines down the glass. "When Charles died," she said quietly, "I thought grief would be the end of me. I didn't know it was only the beginning. I've lived these years trying to be worthy of his memory, of your family's mercy. And now I find that mercy is a blade as sharp as cruelty." He approached slowly. "You were never the charity of this house, Evelyn. You were its soul." She turned to him, tears bright in her eyes. "You speak like a man who has nothing left to lose." "Perhaps I do not." "Then think of those who depend on you, the tenants, the servants, the name that feeds them." "I think of you," he said. "Every morning. Every night. In every silence my mother demands of me. Tell me how to unlearn that." Her breath caught, and for a heartbeat the world seemed to still. The sound of rain, the ticking of the clock, the fragile beat of her heart, all merged into one trembling moment. "You should not say these things," she murmured. "I should have said them years ago." She shook her head. "No. Then they would have destroyed us both. They already have." He took a step closer and another, until only a breath of air separated them. His hand rose, stopped midway, then fell again. "If I could change your fate with mine, I would." "You cannot. But I can stand beside you while it breaks." Her composure wavered, the facade of strength collapsing like a curtain drawn at the final act. "You make it sound like tragedy." Perhaps it is. The door burst open before either could speak again. Sister Margaret entered, her face pale. "Forgive me," she said, breathless. "There's been an accident. The roof beam in the children's quarters collapsed. No one is hurt, but the building—" Evelyn ran past her into the corridor, skirts flying. Adrian followed. Rain poured through a jagged hole in the roof, drenching the narrow beds below. The children huddled near the doorway, frightened but safe. Evelyn dropped to her knees, gathering the smallest girl into her arms. "It's all right, my darling," she whispered, though her voice trembled. Adrian looked upward, water streaming from the splintered beam. "It's beyond repair," he said grimly. Evelyn met his eyes. "Then it ends here." "No," he said. "It begins here." Before she could answer, a carriage approached outside, the rhythmic clatter of wheels cutting through the rain. Adrian turned toward the sound, recognizing it instantly. The Whitmore crest gleamed faintly on the door. His mother had come. Evelyn saw his expression and understood. "You must go," she said. "I will not leave you. If she finds you here, she will destroy you too." A child began to cry. Thunder rolled across the sky. Evelyn's hair clung to her face, her dress soaked through, her hands trembling but steady as she soothed the frightened little ones. Adrian stood frozen, torn between duty and desire, between the woman he loved and the world that forbade her. The carriage door slammed outside. The dowager's voice carried through the rain, sharp and commanding. "Adrian." He looked once more at Evelyn. Her defiance, her grace, the ruin of gentility turned into quiet courage. And in that moment, beneath the broken roof and the storm's fury, he knew there would be no retreat left after tonight. He stepped toward the door, his voice low, a promise edged with despair. "Whatever they take from me, they will never take you." Then he was gone into the storm, leaving her standing amid the wreckage, the child still in her arms as the dowager's silhouette appeared at the gate. An omen, a reckoning, and the beginning of their end. The fire began before dawn, silent and swift, as though the night itself had conspired to finish what the world had begun. By the time the first bell tolled, the orphanage was already burning. A great orange wound against the gray London sky. Evelyn awoke to the sound of crackling timber and the choking scent of smoke. She did not hesitate. Barefoot and breathless, she ran through the corridors, shouting names, dragging frightened children into the open air. The wind whipped the flames into a frenzy, the walls collapsing behind her like thunder. By sunrise, all the children stood safe on the frost-slick grass, shivering in blankets. Evelyn's gown was torn, her hands blackened with soot, but she did not feel the cold. She watched the roof cave in, the fire devouring every remnant of the life she had built from loss. The orphanage, her sanctuary, her purpose, was gone. When Adrian arrived hours later, he found her standing among the ashes, the dawn light pale against her soot-streaked face. He dismounted before the carriage had even stopped, rushing to her side. "Evelyn, God, are you hurt?" She shook her head, her voice barely audible. "The children are safe. And you?" "I will be," she said, though her eyes betrayed her. He turned to the ruins, jaw tight with rage. This wasn't an accident. Her silence confirmed it. They both knew. London's society would not be satisfied until she was erased entirely. A whispered rumor here, a forged accusation there, and now fire. The dowager's reach was long and her patience absolute. Adrian's hand closed around Evelyn's arm, gentle but urgent. "You can't stay here. Come with me." "To where?" "Anywhere but this cursed street. Your mother would rather see me buried than beneath your roof." "Then let her dig," he said fiercely. "I will not lose you to her pride." But Evelyn only looked at the smoking ruins. "If I leave now, she wins. She has already taken everything from you." Her gaze lifted to his. "Not everything." The meaning lingered between them, fragile as breath. And though neither moved, the distance seemed to close on its own. The air carried the faint smell of ash and rain. Then, as if the world itself remembered them, thunder rolled again over the city. By evening, the children were taken to a nearby parish for shelter. Evelyn remained behind, refusing to abandon the ruins until every ember had died. Adrian stayed with her, silent except for the occasional whisper of her name. When the last curl of smoke faded, she sank to her knees, exhaustion breaking through the composure she had fought to keep. Adrian knelt beside her, his gloved hands trembling as he brushed a stray lock of hair from her cheek. "You cannot keep fighting alone," he said softly. "I was never meant to be anyone's cause," she murmured. "Then let me be your choice." Her eyes flickered, uncertain, then softened. "You don't know what you ask." "I've spent years knowing nothing else," he said. Every day since Charles died, I've lived half a life. And every time I see you, hear your voice, it feels like breathing again. Adrian? Marry me. The words fell between them like a bell toll, impossible to unhear. Evelyn stared at him, disbelief flickering across her face. You cannot mean that. I do. You would make an outcast of yourself. Then I would be an honest one. The night wind stirred, carrying the faint echo of church bells far across the city. For a moment, she allowed herself to imagine it, to see her name joined with his, to walk freely at his side without fear. But the vision was too bright, too dangerous. Your mother will destroy you, she said finally. She has already tried. You cannot protect me from a world that refuses to see me. Then I will build you a new one. Her lips parted, but no words came. For the first time since the fire began, tears fell freely down her cheeks. You speak as though love were armor. It is, he said simply, and I would wear it until my dying breath. The sound of hooves interrupted them, a messenger riding hard from the city. Adrian rose as the man dismounted, handing him a sealed letter. The wax bore the Whitmore crest. His mother's handwriting marked the front. He read in silence, his expression tightening with every line. When he finished, he crushed the letter in his fist. What is it? Evelyn asked. She's petitioned the crown to strip me of my titles. Her breath caught. She would do that? For you? For us? She would burn down the kingdom. He laughed bitterly. She's already begun. Evelyn reached for his hand. Then go to her. Save what you can. I will not leave you in ruins. You must. He looked at her, the woman who had become his compass, his undoing. If I go, it will be to end this, for good. Then promise me something, she said quietly. When you stand before her, do not let anger speak for you. Let love do it. He hesitated, then nodded. I will return for you. She tried to smile. I will hold you to that. He pressed his forehead to hers, the briefest of touches, then turned and mounted his horse. The rain began again, light at first, then heavier, washing the soot from the earth as he rode away. Evelyn watched until he disappeared into the mist. Hours passed. The children were safe, the fire gone, the city quiet, but an unease settled over her, heavy as the smoke that still lingered in the air. She entered what remained of her office, salvaging papers and books half-burned. Beneath the debris she found the small portrait of Charles Whitmore, Adrian's late brother, its glass cracked but the image intact. His eyes, kind and steady, seemed to watch her still. Forgive me, she whispered, for taking what was never meant to be mine. Lightning flashed through the window, illuminating the ruins. And then footsteps. She turned sharply. A figure stood in the doorway, half hidden by the shadows. For an instant, her heart leapt. Adrian? But no. The man who stepped forward was older, dressed in a long black coat, his face drawn with purpose. Lady Evelyn? Yes. I come on behalf of Her Grace, the Dowager Duchess. Her pulse quickened. What could she possibly want now? He extended a sealed envelope. A proposition. Evelyn took it slowly, her fingers trembling. The seal bore not the Whitmore crest but the royal insignia. Her stomach dropped. She has spoken to the crown, the man said. There will be consequences for the Duke's defiance. And for me? He met her eyes. That depends entirely on your answer. The rain intensified, drumming against the shattered roof. Evelyn broke the seal, the parchment stiff and cold in her hands. As her eyes traced the first line, the blood drained from her face. It was not a threat. It was an offer. The Dowager promised restoration, funding for a new orphanage, her name cleared, her work reinstated, but at a price she could barely comprehend. She was to leave London before the week's end, and never see Adrian Whitmore again. The messenger's voice was calm, almost kind. If you care for him, my lady, you will accept. Evelyn looked once more at the letter, the ink glistening under candlelight. Outside, thunder cracked the sky in two. And somewhere far across the city, Adrian rode toward a reckoning that neither of them would survive untouched. The letter reached Adrian before dawn, soaked through from the relentless London rain. He read it once beneath the flickering lamplight, then again as though disbelief might alter the words. She has agreed to leave. Every letter curved with finality, every line a quiet surrender. The ink bled into his hands, and for the first time in years, the Duke of Whitmore felt the hollow weight of helplessness. The carriage was already waiting outside. His mother had summoned him to the estate under the guise of reconciliation. But the truth bled through her polished civility. This was no peace offering. It was an execution cloaked in grace. The road to Whitmore Hall stretched long and gray, the rain slicing through the dawn mist. He did not notice the wet or the cold. His thoughts moved only between Evelyn's tearful face and the echo of her final plea, "Let love speak for you." The phrase haunted him. How could love survive a world built upon inheritance, bloodlines, and obedience? By the time he reached the gates, the manor loomed like a relic of judgment. Servants moved silently through the corridors, their eyes lowered as he passed. The Dowager Duchess awaited him in the drawing room, her posture immaculate, her expression serene as if awaiting a confession. The firelight gilded her pearls and deepened the shadows beneath her eyes. "You look unwell, my son," she said, her tone clipped. "It does not suit a Whitmore to appear desperate." Adrian met her gaze without bowing. "You've spoken to the crown." "Indeed. I've done what you would not. You've destroyed everything I've built." "I've preserved it," she corrected, rising with slow precision. "Do not mistake indulgence for mercy, Adrian. The Whitmore name survives because I protect it from your sentiment." He took a step forward, voice low. "You speak of names while London burns with the ruin you've sown." Her lips curved faintly. "That woman, your brother's charity case, was an embarrassment long before the fire. I merely hastened what society had already decided." He froze, the words striking like steel. "You ordered it." She did not flinch. "A regrettable necessity. You were on the verge of making a mockery of your birthright. I will not see this family disgraced by your infatuation." Adrian's jaw clenched. "Infatuation? You think love something that can be erased with fire and decree? Love is a luxury reserved for those who can afford its consequences." For a moment, silence swelled between them, the kind that broke more than it mended. He saw then not his mother, but the architect of a dynasty built upon fear. "You've won," he said softly. "She'll go." "Good. But not before I see her." The dowager turned away, smoothing the lace at her sleeve. "That will not be possible." He stepped closer. "You cannot forbid me." "I can, and I have." "She leaves tonight under royal escort. Should you attempt to follow, the crown will consider it defiance of direct order. You'll lose your estates, your title, everything your father bled for." Adrian's voice trembled, though not with fear. "Then I have already lost what matters." He left before she could answer. The rain struck harder as he mounted his horse, the hooves tearing through the soaked road toward the river port. Every instinct screamed that he was too late, but the heart is a stubborn thing. It runs toward pain even when reason commands retreat. At the docks, carriages stood lined against the mist, and among them Evelyn's figure, wrapped in a plain gray cloak, her bonnet drawn low. She looked smaller than he remembered, fragile yet unbroken, as though even the rain dared not touch her too harshly. "Evelyn." She turned at once, her breath catching when she saw him. "Adrian, you can't be here." "I had to see you. It's too dangerous." "Your mother." "Be damned to her." His voice cracked against the wind. "She may strip me of title and wealth, but she cannot take this from me." She shook her head, eyes glistening. "If you love me, you will let me go." "No," he whispered, stepping closer. "If I love you, and I do, it means I cannot." She looked up at him, torn between longing and fear. "They'll ruin you. They already have." He drew something from his coat, a small velvet ribbon, the one she had once tied in a child's hair at the orphanage. "You left this behind." Her breath faltered. "You kept it?" "Every day." For a moment, neither spoke. The city around them blurred into rain and fog, their world reduced to the small space between them. Then she took his hand, pressing it to her cheek. "You must live without me." "I've tried," he said. "For years I tried. But every sunrise began with your absence and ended with your memory. I am done living half a life." The guards began to stir, orders echoed across the dock. Evelyn looked toward the carriage that awaited her. "Adrian, please?" He reached for her other hand, holding it with quiet desperation. "Tell me you do not love me, and I will let you go." Her lips trembled, but no sound came. "Evelyn," he said, voice breaking. "Say it." Tears mingled with the rain. "I cannot." That was all the permission he needed. He pulled her close, not in defiance but in surrender. Around them, the wind howled and the bells of St. Albans tolled faintly in the distance. His coat enveloped her, his hand trembling as it rested at the small of her back. "For years I loved you in silence," he murmured, his forehead against hers. "Tonight I no longer can." She closed her eyes, a single tear tracing the line of her jaw. "Then let this be our last moment." The guards advanced. One shouted his name, another reached for his shoulder. Evelyn drew back, her gaze burning with urgency. Go before they take you. I will not leave you again. You must. He caught her hand one final time, pressing a kiss to her knuckles, slow, reverent, sealing years of unspoken devotion. Then, as the guards closed in, she tore herself free and stepped into the waiting carriage. The door slammed shut. The wheels turned. Adrian did not move. The rain beat against his face as the carriage rolled away, vanishing into the fog beyond the bridge. When at last it disappeared, he sank to his knees, the river's mist swallowing his breath. He remained there until the bell stopped ringing. When he finally rose, his gloves were soaked, his heart hollow. He turned toward the city, toward the world that demanded he forget her. But as he walked, he noticed something clutched in his palm, the ribbon, damp but intact. She must have slipped it into his hand in those final moments. He stared at it, the faint scent of lavender still clinging to the thread. And for the first time since childhood, the Duke of Whitmore wept without restraint. Far from London, the carriage rattled toward the countryside. Evelyn kept her eyes on the horizon, her hand pressed against her chest where the locket he had given her lay hidden beneath the fabric. The rain had softened now, tapering into mist. A single thought repeated in her mind, steady as a vow. One day when the world has forgiven us, he will find me. And though the storm had passed, neither of them knew that forgiveness, like love, was sometimes the most dangerous rebellion of all.